based on what you learned in the Gizmos investigations that you did, um, I'm hoping you have come to some conclusions about how to add integers. And some of you might prefer using the number line, and some of you might prefer using integer disks, and some of you might have already come to your own conclusions after both of those investigations, and you might not need to use any kind of tool at all. You might just kind of have an understanding of how to work with the integers, and you might know the answers. So one thing that you hopefully noticed when you were adding integers where the signs were the same, so two negatives or two positives, what actually happened was that the number part just got added and the sign stayed the same. So for example, you've been doing this for a long time, like 6 plus 7. 6 plus 7, that's just going to be 13, right? Now, what if we had two negatives? So if I have -3 and I add another negative, think about it again in terms of context. Like you owe someone $5 and now you owe them another $2. You're going to owe them more money, right? You owe someone 5, you owe them another 2, you're now going to owe them 7. And so what happens is the number part gets bigger and you move further down the number line. So even though you're adding, when you add a negative, you're actually going to head left to the number line. And if you remember in the Gizmos investigation, it asks you about what direction the arrow was pointing. That's something that you need to be thinking about when you're doing these questions. So -3 plus -8 becomes -11, because again, 3 plus 8 is 11. And then you just happen to be moving further in the negative direction. So -2 plus -6, that's going to be -8. -3 plus -2, that's going to be -5. So when the signs are the same, you're just going to add the numbers together. You're going to keep the sign the same. Two positives, you're just going to get more money, right? Think about it. If you are given $6 and you're given another $7, you're now going to have even more money. Likewise, if you owe someone money and then you owe them more, you're now going to owe them even more. Now, the other one to think about, oh, shoot. Give me 1 second. There we go. The other one to think about is what do you do when the signs are different? So when the signs are different, you probably noticed that it was kind of like you were subtracting, that your answers actually got smaller. So what you actually do when the signs are different is you're actually going to find the difference between the numbers. So for example, 5 plus -8, that becomes -3 because the difference between 5 and 8 is 3. And then in this case, because the bigger number, the 8, is negative, your answer will be -3. So for example, in this one, -2 plus 6. The difference between 2 and 6 is 4, and 6 is the bigger number, that's positive, so we're going to get +4. Again, if this is confusing to you, think about it in terms of the number line. Think about what you did with that Gizmos investigation. If you're sitting at -2 and you're adding 6, think about what direction your arrow goes. When you add a positive, you move to the right on the number line. But in this case, when you add a negative, you're actually going to the left on the number line. So you're at 6 and you're moving left 4. That one will be 2. Or think in terms of the difference between 6 and 4 is 2, and 6 is the bigger number, so it'll be +2. So -8 plus 5, okay, the difference between them is 3. The bigger number is negative, so it's going to be -3. Or think in terms of the number line, you're at -8, and you add 5. You move to the right 5. This one will be you're at 4, and you're adding -9. And remember, when you add a negative, you're actually moving to the left of the number line. Or if that doesn't work, think in terms of the difference between 4 and 9 is 5, so this one will be -5. You have to use whatever works for you, and for some of you, you might prefer the integer chips or disks. Some of you might prefer using a number line. That's usually what most people prefer. Or some of you might just have an understanding of how these numbers work, and you might be able to do it without one of those tools. What I want you to do now is I want you to try these practice questions on your own. I want you to pause the video. I want you to try them on your own. When you're done, I want you to restart the video and check your answers and see if you're right. If you're getting a lot wrong, I want you to ask your teacher for help and make sure that you go over it with your teacher so that you understand. So here are the answers. And as I said, I want you to check to see if you're right, and then I want you to ask for your teacher for help if you need it. A couple things that I do want to just draw to your attention are these bottom two right here. Notice that when you add two opposites together, your answer will always be 0, and that's just something to kind of keep in mind.